Hey, everybody. Welcome to the return of the Unseen Paranormal podcast. This will kick off the second half of our third season. We still got 25 more episodes to go in season 3. I just want to jump on here and I took a little break, had a little vacation, so that was nice. And I feel refreshed and relaxed, ready to get on with more paranormal spookiness. A few announcements. Tennessee Haunts and Legends Expo coming up in October. But in the meantime, you can come join us at the Thomas House once again, May 12th or 13th. You get to pick the date that you want to be there. We will have special guests, Brittany Clark and Bob Hicks from Tales from the Dark podcast and the hit documentary film Phantom Farm. They will also be guests at the expo, but you can come hang out and investigate with them at the Thomas House, May 12th or 13th. Tickets are $125 a person. But you get a room for the night, you get dinner, you get the all-night ghost hunt, and breakfast the next morning. That is in Red Bowling Springs, Tennessee. Jump on over to our Facebook page, and you will get all the links and the notes on all that good stuff. So keep on the lookout. We'll have plenty of other events coming up this year. And like I said, in October, mark your calendar, October 21st at the Nashville Fairgrounds. We will be doing the Tennessee Haunts and Legends Expo with lots of speakers and good things like that. So I think that's all the housekeeping, but glad to have y'all back. And we'll be running new episodes every Wednesday per usual until the season's over. Enjoy this awesome episode. It is a good one, a great story. Her book is amazing. And we'll see you next time. Join us as we dive into the history, hauntings, and high strange of the world to try to better understand the paranormal. I will be your guide. I am paranormal researcher and investigator Eric Freeman-Sims. Welcome to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. Today we're chatting with author Danielle Oberosler. Danielle is a career tattooer and has written as a columnist for Skin and Ink magazine. In 2021, she published her paranormal book, The Haunted Guesthouse, A True Story. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The Haunted Guesthouse, A True Story is available on Kindle, Amazon, Audible, and wherever fine books are sold. Hey, Danielle, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to hear your story because it's one thing to read a book. It's different to hear it from the person, you know?
Oh, I know. Yes.
Reading a book, I mean, you use your imagination and you can kind of imagine what somebody went through, but like hearing it from the person, it makes it a lot more personal and personable, and you can relate a lot better. So, I love stories like this, like we were talking before we recorded, because as an investigator, it's not personal. And so to talk to somebody who went through something like this that is personal and can, the horrors of going through it and trying to get help and things like that and not finding it and going through it for 13 years, it's a long time.
It was a long time. It was intense.
So after living through all that, before we get into the story of what happened, how did you come to write the book in 2021?
Well, there was a paranormal witness episode about my house filmed, I think, in about 2015. And, back then, the activity was still going on, as the show ended. And I would get messages from people around the world whenever the show would air asking me, like, if I ever found the body under the house that I was looking for in the episode, and the activity continued and stuff. And, I didn't have anything new to share, but then in 2021, it all came to a head, and the activity got so bad that somebody finally told me I needed to hire a shaman. And with this help of the shaman, we actually were able to clear the house. And so I felt like I should write the story because there's so many people out there in haunted locations where you're not really getting that help that you need.
Right.
To make your house a safe place. And I just wanted to write it and share my story. It might help somebody else.
Yeah, and also going through this as a single mother and trying to protect your kids and work, and you're worried about this, and it's way more added stress than what anybody really wants. Through life is tough enough sometimes without the added stress of trying to protect your kids and trying to protect yourself, and from something that it's hard to battle and you can't see.
Yeah, I think that was like the part that really bothered me the most is, it's one thing when something is happening to you. I think we as humans can withstand quite a bit actually, but when you're thinking about your loved ones and that there's nothing you can do to help them it hurts your heart. You just you want to protect your kid.
Yeah.
It did bother my mom as well, and my best friend. Like it was hurting everyone I cared about. So yeah, you want help, and you need to figure out how to get that help. And so many people, they claim that they can help you, and they just actually don't.
Yeah, and unfortunately there are paranormal teams and investigators, or people that call themselves investigators, out there who put themselves in situations to go into private residence for people like you claiming to help, but really they're just there for their own. Unfortunately, they're there for their own amusement in a way, because, okay, while this stuff is happening to this person, I want to go experience it instead of coming in there with the intention of helping. And sometimes I've even heard about, people coming in and making it worse because they want to come in and provoke and do things that they don't understand, maybe rituals, or try to cleanse or bless something, and they end up making it worse.
Yeah, it's a little exploitive of the people that are actually being terrorized and the ghosts, and when they come in and they try to anger the ghosts and make it worse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I get it. Everybody wants to have a show and become a famous star. But I only had one crew here over the years. So, and they came for like multiple times over the course of a year or two.
Yeah, and it's something that I think a lot of people need to realize, that when you go in, if you're going to be an investigator, if you're going to do private homes, when you go in, you got to understand that you're fucking with people's lives, and these are people's real lives. And when you leave, this stuff still continues to happen.
Yeah, that's true. After I had my house investigated for as much time, and there was all this evidence, photos, recordings, video, everything that they got, I was kind of done. Like I had gotten the information that I wanted, which, there were some of the teams were mediums and clairvoyants, and, I could get enough information to know who's in this house and what they're doing and stuff, what they're up to. And that's all I really wanted, was that information. They tried to cleanse it too, and they saged in that. And I think one of the guys was actually like a Catholic kind of priest or something, and they tried to make it like a religious thing and everything, and it didn't work in the end.
Yeah. So let's start back at the beginning, when you first moved into this place. That you experienced this for 13 years. So this happened quite a while ago when it started, but it lasted for 13 years. So let's go back to the beginning and when you first started noticing things happen.
Well, I had bought the house, and that was in 2008. It's two houses. There's a house and a guest house. So it's the guest house that everything was really bad in, but I didn't notice it at first because I lived in the other house, and I was using the guest house as like an art studio and like a guest bedroom when I had a friend stay. And initially, it wasn't seeming that bad. Kind of everywhere I've lived, I'll wake up and there will be like some ghost looking at me. And, when I first wake up or as I'm falling asleep, I'll see stuff no matter where I've lived. So waking up here and having something next to my bed wasn't really that unusual for any place. You know what I mean? So I didn't really consider my house haunted to start with. And it wasn't until my best friend moved into the house, the guest house, and she was in there for a couple of years, that she started saying stuff like, "Hey, did you ever notice there was activity in here?" And, I didn't really think there was, I didn't know. It definitely was a creepy house. I'm not going to lie about that. But the stuff that she was saying was really funny kind of stuff, like the ghost was keeping her awake at night. It's got wood floors, and it would find a squeaky floorboard and just sort of like keep pressing on it to squeak the floor when she would be trying to fall asleep. And she would like sit up and yell like, "Really?" And it would stop. But then when she laid back down, it would start squeaking again. And it would just keep her awake. And we thought it was funny, like a prankster ghost.
Yeah.
But as she stayed in there longer, it seemed like the activity just got worse and worse. She would start saying she was getting scratched, and she'd have bruises. She had scratches down her back. Like, there's no way you can do that to yourself. I remember her saying that the house smelled like sulfur. And I'd watched enough paranormal shows to know, like, that's never a good sign,
Right.
Scratching and the smells. So she stayed in there for a couple years, and I want to say her personality kind of changed while she was in there. She wasn't sleeping well, and she started becoming very withdrawn. She wasn't going out with me anymore and that kind of stuff. So I could tell that it was, actually wearing on her.
Yeah. So when you first bought this house, it was kind of in disrepair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was kind of it had just been forgotten about is what it looked like. And so as most investigators out there know, a lot of times when you start to, remodel a house, that's kind of when it kicks up activity for whatever reason. I don't know if that's what happened in this case.
I didn't do that much work on it. I just put like plywood over the hole in the floor. And I did build one wall to kind of hide that corner that was really a mess. And then the rest of it, just needed a little paint and, cleaning, and it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
It was just that back corner that was really bad looking, so I just hid it because the main house also needed a lot of work, and I was living in this one. So I did like a lot of work on this house, but I didn't think that it was the work on the house that made the activity ramp up. I think it was somebody being in there longer, and like somehow it fed off her energy.
Yeah.
And got stronger as she was in there longer. To me, that's what it seemed like made it worse.
And so in the main house, you never really had any activity other than what you'd kind of experienced out your life.
Yeah, it'd be like, waking up and having somebody's face right in my face, that kind of stuff. It did wander in sometimes into my house. Like, I know one night I was laying on the couch watching television, and I felt a hand touch my face, but it was on the side of my face that was on the pillow, like on the couch. It wasn't even like the air, like exposed cheek. It was and I'm like, how the hell did I just get touched through my furniture? It's very startling. But also, there was a ghost in the house that was like rapey, I'll say. And that one would also wander into my house as well. And it's like you're trying to sleep and this thing is messing with you. I had gotten like a crocheted Afghan that my great grandmother made, and I would wrap up in that Afghan and say out loud, "I'm protected by my ancestors. Don't fuck with me." So as much as I probably had an attitude outwardly that I'm not really that affected or upset about any of this stuff, I clearly was. I mean, I'm trying to wear an Afghan armor to bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that it was pretty horrible, like you just never knew. It wasn't like every single day you'd get messed with, but I'm sure Hannah was because she was in there like nightly, but it would wander into my house occasionally.
Yeah. And there's all kind of phenomena too, like things going missing and never showing back up, and shadow figures. And
yeah, we had a lot of things would go missing. And the first thing ever that went missing was a Pee Wee Herman doll. And I mean, that's just something that you notice, like the doll is gone, and you would notice if it came back because it's an unusual thing. My friend Hannah had little taxidermied mice that were like sitting at a little cafe table, like a little kind of figurine thing with these mice, and that went missing. And again, it's a unique thing to go missing. You would notice.
Right.
So I kept thinking, one day I'm gonna, I don't know, fix a wall or something, do some work in the house, and I'm gonna find this pile of creepy dolls and figures and stuff that have been taken over the years. But I never did.
And it affected not only her, but her boyfriend had weird things happen to him as well.
Yeah, she saw something one night. She woke up and she thought that he was sitting up in bed next to her. And then she realized that he was laying down sleeping, and something was like sitting and then laid down into his body. She saw it, and then like immediately he woke up with a start, like when you wake up rough from a dream.
Yeah.
And he said something like, "Oh, I must have had a bad dream or something." But she was like, "Are you okay?" Because she saw that thing lay into him. And he ended up getting a little bit, I don't know, psychological problems afterwards and stuff. I know that he ended up getting diagnosed multiple times, I think with schizophrenia or something like that, and medicated. I think all that's been reversed and he's been cleaned up. But he had like years of difficulty. And And when they broke up and everything, I mean, he ended up taking a gun and putting it in his mouth, and he was like running the shower, like he was in the shower, like he might just kill himself and everything. It was, it was really bad.
Yeah.
So I think he's doing better now. He's messaged me. He doesn't mind that it was included in the book.
Yeah. And I mean, was he known to have any kind of issues before staying at the house? And
you mean before the thing laid into him?
Yeah.
I don't really know. He moved from another state here, and I didn't know him before he lived here, so I can't really say. I don't know. If somebody did have issues before moving in there, I can't imagine that house would have made anything better for them.
Yeah.
It just would have piled on top.
Yeah, just exacerbate any issues going on, especially with like an attachment that's negative all the time. And yeah, that type of stuff.
Yes, definitely. I feel for everyone that went in there and stayed in there and were harassed in such a horrible way.
Yeah.
My daughter and I actually had moved in for a few years at my mom's house across town because my stepdad had passed away and we didn't want her to be alone. And the activity from my guest house went over to her house. And it was kind of crazy because, well, I guess I'm kind of jumping ahead. We had the house investigated before this for about a year with a whole team. We had mediums in there. We found out that the ghosts were like, there was a biker ghost and he was really mean. He had killed a few people in the house.
Wow.
One was his girlfriend. And so she was believed her spirit was still in the house as well, and that he was kind of keeping her trapped there. So he was, the main antagonist. There were also some non-human beings in there, like demons. And somebody had performed a satanic ritual in the guest house that opened a portal. So the house was sort of like a bus stop for activity. Like it would just be coming and going.
Yeah.
And of course, when the investigators were in there, the activity would really ramp up a lot. And I don't necessarily think that they were doing anything to, exacerbate it, but I think that the spirits, it's almost like they would save their energy for when they came, like they wanted to be in pictures and be heard and seen and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it would really ramp up while they were there, and all the meters they had and everything would go off the charts. And that's, a lot of people would get cigarette burns, scratches, and physically attacked during the investigations.
Wow.
Yeah. So the house, like you would get scars, like permanent scars in there.
And we didn't mention this yet, but this is in California. And and you found that was an area, talking about the biker gangs, that Charles Manson may have had some ties to that area where the house is.
Yeah, I knew that the neighborhood when I bought the house was in it's in this unincorporated part. We're near Los Angeles, between LA County and Ventura County. There's this hillside community. It's called the Knolls. We call it the Knolls, but it's the Santa Susana Knolls. And I knew that the Manson family lived at Spawn Ranch, which is just down the road.
Yeah.
And that he partied with all the bikers in the neighborhood. So, there is this history of this area that you just hear around town, like everybody knows it. It's very common knowledge that the neighborhood were Satan's slaves and Hell's Angels and the Manson family were running around up in here. So I know, like, there's a house it's kind of around the corner from mine. And when I first moved in, someone had pointed it out to me. It's a property. There's no house anymore because there was a fire and the house burned down. But they were like, yeah, the Manson family used to live in that house. And it's literally around the corner. And that was where they lived before they moved down to Spawn Ranch. So when I was told about the satanic ritual in my guest house, it was really weird because an image of Charles Manson popped into my head at that time. And this is a long time ago. This is more than a decade ago. I was like, wow, I wonder if Manson was in this house before and involved in any of this. I didn't even know then that, that they did do satanic rituals at all, the family. It was only a couple years ago that I was reading a book called A Shadow over Santa Susana. It's a book about the Manson family, and it's in that book that I read that he was doing satanic rituals, and so were the women, and they were torturing animals and stuff. So the first medium came, and they were talking about this portal, the satanic ritual. She said that I had something in the dirt under my house, that she couldn't cleanse the house because the spirit was earthbound. And she pointed to that area that had the hole in the floor. And she said, you need to get whatever it is out of the dirt, or you'll never cleanse this house.
Yeah.
So she pointed where it was. She said, it's like the length of a human and it needs to go. So I took up the plywood. That's when I started digging. And, the episode of Paranormal Witness is called The Pit, because I was trying to find possibly the girlfriend, or, you know what I mean? I don't know who,
right.
What was in the dirt. But she did warn me. She said, in a satanic ritual, you don't know like what they might have sacrificed and put in this dirt. Like, so be really careful or be prepared, because, you might find a baby. I was like, wow, this is just be so horrible.
Well, especially, with Charles Manson being involved, if he was involved, we know the history from him, so there's no telling what kind of people he was hanging out with other than the Manson family.
Yeah, and part of the lore around town is that, if you go walking around Spawn Ranch, I guess a lot of those women that he was sleeping with, and and they all were, there was more men than just him, but they were all sleeping together and having all these babies, and some of them didn't make it or whatever, and I think they're just like probably buried around. So who knows,
Right.
You just have no idea what you're gonna uncover. So that's when I started digging and looking for whatever might be in the dirt. And I was kind of like an archaeologist. I was using paintbrushes and like brushing off the little things, anything that looked like it could be bone, like probably mostly rocks, you know what I mean? But I did find what looked like a thick enough bone to be part of a leg, like,
yeah.
I could see the texture, the fiber texture of the bone, and it had bone marrow, that was different in the center. And I took it to the police station, and they said that, because I'm in an unincorporated area, it's not their jurisdiction, and I really need to call the sheriff. But they looked at it under the microscope, the forensics did, and they said that is a bone, but they don't know if it's animal or human. So I need to call the sheriff. So I did call the sheriff, and they came and took it, and they determined it was animal. And then, I was tattooing a police officer, and he said that sometimes when a person is hiding a body and they're burying a body, they'll bury an animal on top of it in case, it's not deep enough and you smell it or whatever. If you were to dig looking for a body, you would stop at the animal, because you'd be like, oh, that's the source of the smell.
Yeah.
So then I just wanted to dig deeper in case there was a person buried deeper underneath what, this decoy animal.
Right. I like how you said in the book you began to feel like Kevin Bacon from Stir of Echoes.
Yeah, what a great movie, right?
Yeah, kind of getting obsessed with seeing what you can find in this hole.
Yeah, it's like it was kind of an obsession, but it was because I really wanted the house cleansed.
Right.
So maybe, and I think he was trying to find that girl too. So it was similar. He was trying to find that girl's body.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like that was a really good parallel, and I was, and my friends were cracking jokes about me and stuff. And that was it. That was the only bone I really found. It was really weird though, because while I was digging, I was finding pieces of the flooring like under the dirt that I was digging. So the fact that there was that hole in the floor already, somebody clearly dug there.
Yeah.
Only thing I really found was this humongous piece of black obsidian. I don't know how big they normally are, but it was like, I don't know, a foot long.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't that seem like a big piece?
Yeah, and especially in the California dirt, like what would that be doing there?
I don't know, but it was right smack dab in the center. It was fairly deep, and it kind of resembled melted black glass.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was obsidian or melted black glass. I don't really know. That's what it looked like to me.
But it would point to somebody putting it there as opposed to it being natural.
Yeah, I think so. And my friend, who her name is Sam, she's mentioned in the book, but she, is somewhat of a witch, and so she said, you need to get that obsidian way far away from your property because it absorbs energy. That's what that kind of rock does, and that energy was so bad in that house. I mean, it would make you nauseous when you walked in. So that's what I did. I took that rock and drove it away.
Yeah, I don't blame. I mean, anything at this point to get rid of what's going on, so that get back to some sort of normalcy in life without all this craziness.
Yeah.
And your friend Hannah ended up coming back from Australia, and the house kind of knew that she was coming.
She's actually in town right now again with me. So, but she's my daughter actually lives in the guest house. Well, anyways, that's totally jumping ahead, but
that's fine. But you kind of, when she told you she was coming back, the house kind of already knew that she was coming back.
Yeah, one of the times, yeah, because she would fly back and stay in the house again, and like for a month at a time or something. She'd come back to town and tattoo and stay in the house and kind of go through her things too. But she texted me one time from the airport saying, "Hey, I'm just boarding the plane now. See you when, whatever, how many hours." And I was standing outside the guest house, and I heard all her alarm clocks go off inside the house.
Wow.
And I was like, "Hey, the house knows you're coming."
Yeah.
Yeah, the alarm clocks was a funny thing because, like I said, Hannah wasn't getting good sleep because she was being tormented all night. And so she was being late to work and oversleeping the alarm when she did fall asleep and everything. So she went to Target and bought 5 alarm clocks and set them all to wake her up for work. But instead of doing that, the alarm clocks went off at like 3 a.m. all together, and
wow.
she couldn't turn them off. So she just bundled them up in a blanket and like shoved them in a closet to try to like sleep through the racket.
That's crazy. It's mind blowing, all the different, because normally as an investigator, from like my point of view, we go in and there's usually a predominant, type of haunting. So, poltergeists are usually separate from all this other phenomena, from shadow figures. Shadow figures are usually the only phenomenon going on in the house, or the main phenomena. But this place it's everything all at once.
It was everything, but I think it's because of that portal.
Yeah.
I did have something happen in there that I didn't include in the book just because, it's really not good. But my cousin, he and his wife were going through divorce and having a dispute over the custody of their daughter. And in this dispute, they were trying to get restraining orders and all this, but they ended up in a physical fight. And my cousin ended up stabbing his wife, and she died. He's in prison, but his mom came to have a visitation with the granddaughter, and they stayed in my guest house. I didn't tell my aunt that the house was haunted, and I tried saging the house before she came, and I was talking, saying, "Hey, be chill, don't mess with my aunt," and she slept in the house. She tried to sleep one night in there, and it's like the mom, that of the little girl that was killed, she popped in, and my aunt, I guess, saw her in a dream. It was like she was dreaming, but she saw, I think her name's Melinda, say something like, "I get to see my little girl tonight," and then her face morphed into a demon face, and it scared my aunt. She woke up, but she said she definitely felt a presence in the room, and she wouldn't stay in the house again.
Wow.
So she made it like half a night.
Yeah.
But that ghost wasn't one of the regular ghosts in the house, like the regular cast of characters that were in there, all these bikers. This one was the mother of the little girl, who, I mean, according to my aunt, was a sociopath as well. So it's not like a nice lady.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but maybe she was just trying to be scary to my aunt. I don't know. But it's interesting that she said, "I get to see my little girl tonight," because that portal, she was able to see. I don't know. I think she could see her anywhere anyway, but.
Yeah. The other thing that I find fascinating, because a lot of times with haunted individual houses, it's usually centered around one or two people. But some of these houses, like you're talking about with the portals and maybe some sort of evil activity going on, maybe some kind of inhuman haunting, it tends to affect everybody. Anybody that goes in them, especially if you're a sensitive, you're definitely going to experience things. But it's because, most haunted places I go into, they prefer one person over another than kind of just affecting everybody, everybody seeing stuff and things like that.
I mean, I didn't realize that my aunt was sensitive. You know, she never talked about it, so I didn't know, but she clearly is. And then she wouldn't stay in there again. But I mean, I've had other people go in there who don't believe in ghosts and stuff, and they've crashed out and not had any experience. But I think they're also a really deep sleeper. I think people who are a little bit like more of a light sleeper, like in the show, and it's in the book too, Roy Mayorga, who was the drummer of Stone Sour.
Yeah.
Him and his wife and child slept in the house, and his wife slept through everything, but he heard walking around, and then it's like the ghost lifted the bed and slammed it down a bunch of times and just shook him while he was wide awake, and his wife slept right through it and didn't have any experience at all. I mean, she did, she just doesn't know it.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think, like, with something evil going on, that maybe they do that on purpose to try to make the other person feel crazy. You know what I'm saying? To cause more fear and things like that, because I think, we have more fear when we're alone in a situation like that than if we're with somebody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so maybe they do the things like that on purpose so that, and also maybe they know who they can get more energy out of in the form of fear than other people.
So somebody just mentioned to me, so there's been 3 cults in this area in the past, which Manson family would be one of them. But there's been 2 other cults in the neighborhood, aside from the bikers. Somebody I was talking to recently, they're very clairvoyant, but they were picking up that my house is on a ley line. Because I was starting to wonder if maybe this neighborhood is a vortex or something's going on that's attracting people that are sensitive, basically. I don't think that it's necessarily a negative energy vortex, but I think it's an energy vortex of some sort, and that it could be drawing people around that they may, misbehave with the energy, like, of course, Manson did. But he was saying that it's a ley line and that he believes it runs towards Pasadena, where there's some hills there that Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard went into that area, and they opened a portal there that's called, I think it's called Hell's Gate or something like that. He thinks my house is situated on the same ley line. So it's kind of interesting. I still learn so much, like, all the time. My house has a lot more going on than just ghosts,
Right. Well, and also, I mean, there are places, around the world, kind of like, you've heard Skinwalker Ranch. There's a place called Bridgewater Triangle up in New England area. There is the what they call the Alaskan Triangle, and these places just seem, for whatever reason, to have crazier amounts of weirdness, high strangeness, paranormal going on than other places. Whether it's kind of an energy vortex, like you're saying, or ley lines, or haven't quite figured it out. And maybe this is just one of those places that because, and maybe it drew all those cults and things in, and people doing rituals because of the energy.
Yeah, I don't think it's a negative energy per se, but I think it is energetic, and that somebody could come in who's sensitive and do their weird stuff and make it so much worse.
Yeah. Well, and also I've been an empath my entire life, and for me, just a brief overview, for me, it's not so much dead energy that I'm good with. I'm good with living people's energy and feeling that and that type of stuff. But also with dead people, they're attracted to me, and I've always said it's people like us, and like you're sensitive. You've seen things your whole life.
Yeah,
we're like a lighthouse in the dark.
Yeah,
and so
a beacon.
Yeah, and so they notice that we can notice them in whatever way, whether you see them, hear them, any kind of whatever abilities that you have. Yeah, they see us, and so they're drawn to us because maybe they other ghosts can't see each other and they feel alone or whatever, or they feel that you can help them move on or whatever reason.
Yeah, I don't know. I know that they can tell. I think it has to do with possibly the auras and stuff, who is more sensitive. I
Yeah.
don't know how they know, but yeah, I believe it is something like a beacon that if you shine into their dimension a little bit, they might follow that light.
Yeah, and then you pair that with like any kind of vortex. If you have like a ghost superhighway coming through your house,
Yeah.
and you have sensitive people. Yeah, it's kind of a perfect storm of insanity.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I do think that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like I said, the energy did ramp up. It did get a lot worse, and it was attacking me, my daughter, and my mom. And my daughter, like, we weren't getting any sleep at all. My daughter started spending the night out at friends' houses because she could, just to try to sleep. But even when she'd go to another house, the activity would somehow be still bothering me and my mom and go attack the family where my daughter was staying too.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was so confused about how is it, is it attached to me? Is it attached to her? What the heck is going on? Like I just
Yeah.
I couldn't really figure out what was happening. We tried to do a thing because, you know, the house here has been cleansed many times and the activity never went away, and I was under this idea that it was because this something is earthbound. I don't know where, but the person might be buried here or whatever, and that's why we can't cleanse it. But when it traveled across to my mom's house or somebody else's house, I kept thinking, well, shouldn't we be able to cleanse this house and kick it out? Like it would have to go
Right.
back to my house where the body is or whatever.
Right. Right.
Why isn't it? And it wouldn't work. We couldn't sage it away anywhere else either. We couldn't do any sort of protection, magic, whatever. I did do one magic spell. Somebody gave me a candle and told me what to do, and I did it, and it worked, but it didn't get rid of them. It just trapped the ghosts and demons upstairs so we could sleep downstairs for one night. Well, actually, I was sleeping in my RV. I actually set up my RV in front of my mom's house. We tried to sleep in the RV, and it came out there and bugged us out there. And so I did this magic spell. I trapped the ghost upstairs, and when somebody got up in the morning and stepped over my salt line and where I had burned the candle and everything,
Yeah.
the ghost came immediately. It was so weird. I felt where your third eye is on your forehead.
Yeah.
It felt like my forehead was pulling towards the house. It woke me up. It was like 5 a.m, but I knew somebody stepped over that line. And then instantly that biker was over me. You could smell him. He smelled like mildew. He had a different smell than the sulfur of the
Yeah.
other stuff, but he smelled like mildew. And he was putting these images in my head of me trying to drive my car and him and I fighting over the controls of my car, and that he was threatening to make me crash my car, because of what I did with the salt and the candles. So I knew that I got away with it once, but I would not get away with it twice. And, I couldn't continue to mess around with stuff I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
But that was so interesting because I didn't even know magic was real. I learned so much from this house, but that is when I ended up getting a shaman involved. Actually, I hired 3, and one charged me so much money, $2,000, and the other one was $200. But the thing is, the first shaman, he had me go to him. He wasn't coming to my house, so that's why I was like, I don't know what that's gonna do. Like, my house is haunted. And
Right.
that's why I booked the other shaman that was like super expensive because he was gonna come cleanse my mom's house, cleanse my house, cleanse the guest house, and all that. He said he'd close the portal and everything. And I'm like, all right, $2,000 worth it.
Right.
So I went and saw the other shaman first, and he had me lay on a massage table, and he what he does is chakra, like energy clearing or whatever. So he used pendulum and stuff, and he was saying that I was leaking energy, that it was feeding the ghost, and that's why he was so strong. And so he had to fix my chakra. And once he did that, he said that cut off the energy. The ghost was getting weak, and he's all, I'm going to throw him in the light now. And he like literally blinked his eye, and he goes, all right, he's gone. And I said, what about his demons? Because I know he had them, because I had felt them jumping on my body at night.
Yeah.
Felt like a dog was jumping on me that I couldn't see. He goes, yep, he had 2 demons. They're in the light with him, being processed. And I just thought there's no way that works. There's no possible way. And that when I go home from this appointment, that it's still going to be there. But when I got home, like, a lot of the activity was gone. Everything wasn't gone, but that main bit, the demons and that mean biker were gone.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. But he also had said that my daughter was highly clairvoyant and that he wanted to train her.
Yeah.
And then the other shamans came, and, he spent like 8 hours, and he put crystals all over and did all this stuff. We couldn't be there when he was working, but in the end, the remaining activity was still there. The portal was still open and all that. The first shaman had told my daughter how to get rid of demons and stuff, and he said she's real natural at it. And so she actually is the one that cleared the rest of it, and also she's the one that closed the portal that nobody could close.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was finally like kind of over. I'm not going to say that our house never has anything go on anymore, because it does. Things wander through. And of course, just the history and energy here, it's still attractive.
Right. And like we were talking about with you having gifts and your daughter having gifts, you're going to have visitors. Yeah.
We do. We've been taught how to make our house invisible. We've been taught how to cloak ourselves when we go in public. My daughter knows how to get rid of everything. She actually gets hired by people to clear houses. She does not have to go there. She does it remotely. She's cleared property all around the world, and she's really great. But, we watch, one of our favorite things to our shows to watch is Dead Files, and we love it. We think Amy is, she's clearly an empath, and she's definitely talented. But sometimes at the end, the advice that they give people about their properties, it's really, really inaccurate there at the end.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people claim to get rid of stuff that they are not getting rid of.
Yeah, and that show is one of my favorites too, and I'm amazed at how many people, some of the activity they claim, and they, they're miserable and their marriages are breaking up, and then they don't take any of the advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even to try to get rid of the stuff, or even call any of the people that they tell, she tells them to call or bring in, to at least try to help. People just continue to do what they're doing.
We've watched her tell somebody who had a demon in their basement to just sage the basement. Like, my daughter and I just look at each other, and from our experience, it isn't going to do anything.
Right.
I mean,
maybe piss it off.
I don't think they like the smell, but is it going to make it leave? No. And then someone else had just a human ghost that was an angry woman, and Amy told them to sell their house. We're like, what?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Come on. So yeah, I feel like a lot of this stuff, like, it's interesting. I like that there's paranormal investigation shows. I like to watch them. I love horror movies about the paranormal. But that being said, I feel like there's a lot of people who they don't know how to help people, though.
Right.
There's like this big missing element.
Yeah. I've done some residential cases. That's not my forte. As far as going in and capturing evidence, like, that's what I've always offered, me and the investigators I investigate with, is more so coming in and making people know that they're not crazy. This is really going on, and capturing evidence of that. But then we always point them to people that we know that can help them. We give them, names and stuff, and say, this is who you need to call. And a lot of times that's based on their religion or their belief system.
Yeah.
We have a Catholic priest that we can call anytime, who is awesome if that's what they want, is like, an exorcism of the house or blessing and things like that. But yeah, I would never claim to people, I'm like, I can cleanse energy in your house, being an empath, like, I'm really good at clearing energy.
Yeah.
But that's, if you have your in-laws in town, you need to sage your house to cleanse the energy, because the energy just builds up.
Yeah.
And it gets chaotic, and eventually it'll affect you. But, that's the only thing I can claim to do. But yeah, I've always tried to be truthful with people and say, we don't get rid of things. We'll come and investigate and see what we can capture and find out. Yeah. And try to find out maybe why they're here, but we're going to steer you to somebody else to get rid of the stuff. And I think there's more teams out there that need to be that way.
You could throw my daughter in your list of contacts because she doesn't have to go there. She can remote view and clear it like real easy.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
We actually we had an investigator crew around here, around the Los Angeles area, that have wanted my daughter and the shaman that I see now, which I've been seeing him for 2 years because he's so great.
Yeah.
And his name is Michael Shaman, if anyone's in the LA area listening to this. And then my daughter Morgan. So they wanted the shaman and my daughter to go on investigations with them. And at the end, when they were done collecting their evidence or whatever, they wanted, them to clear the house.
Yeah.
Well, the scheduling kept getting so messed up, and my daughter could see that the woman and her son are being tormented so bad that she ended up just throwing the worst of the activity out of the house, like into the light, even though they haven't gotten in to investigate, just because we can't let these people suffer for months,
Right.
Like, just not ethical.
So you still own the house and the guest house?
Yeah, and we do live here again. Now that my daughter is actually living in the guest house, she's closed the portal. She had to close it in 3 dimensions, not just in one. And she works to keep it closed. Because I think it's like a weak spot now, if you can understand that. Like, the seam's been ripped there, so she has to enforce it, I think.
Yeah, keep reinforcing those boundaries and keep that protection up.
Yeah, she does. And we've had to, throw some good protections on the property. We've got, craziness around here. We had recently, if I told you everything that goes on here, like we recently were being harassed by a Wendigo, if you can imagine that.
Oh, wow.
That was really horrible. It was kind of scary. We had to throw a crazy protection on the house that night because it was ramming our trash cans outside the door and everything. It was so mad at us.
Yeah, well, I mean, the history, you put some of the history of the land in the book as well, and that was all Native American land at one point in time, and
yeah, and yes, it was Chumash here for like I don't even know how long, thousands of years,
right?
And then that was another thing I was a little worried about when I was digging, trying to find this whatever was under my house, was that what if it turns out to be Native American too? Like, oh my God, this is gonna be bad, like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we actually had one of the biker ghosts that stayed behind while the house has been cleansed, and he's been fairly protective of my daughter, Craig. And if anyone messes with my daughter, he goes and makes their car break down and stuff. Gives them a hard time. He breaks their air conditioning and stuff.
Wow.
It's kind of funny that he's very protective of her.
Yeah.
And he usually doesn't like people right away. And we think that the person seems pretty good, and then they turn out to be a crappy person.
Yeah.
And he was right from the beginning, so it's like he seems to know better than us.
Yeah, you might want to pay attention.
Yeah, I know. I know. So he was great, and and then we did have Charles Manson's ghost here recently for about a month. I woke up, I saw him floating next to me in bed or above my bed, and I did draw him, so I saw a print of what he looked like as a ghost. He was like in his 30s. He looked like about when he was arrested, before he had the tattoo on his forehead.
Yeah.
A little bit longer hair, younger, and all that. But he was here. He kept like messing around with our doors, and he thought he was really funny and all that. My daughter was not that amused with any of his pranks, but yeah, he moved on. I think he pops in occasionally. He always hears when we talk about him. So
yeah. That must have been like like get you awake really quick to wake up and see him.
Yeah, he was around for a few weeks. That's how we learned that the Manson family, they were squatting in the guest house before they went to Spawn Ranch.
Yeah.
I didn't know, it wasn't disclosed to me ever because they didn't like fill out a rental agreement or anything. They were literally squatting in there. But we heard it from him because I was like, why is he here? Like I get it that he likes the neighborhood and everything, but why is he in our house for so long?
Right.
And Morgan's like, oh no, he lived here. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I felt like, that was rather intuitive of myself when I saw him involved in that portal, that satanic ritual from the beginning.
Yeah.
That I'm sure he was. But he's actually learning. He's trying to clean up some of his karma, and he's trying to learn. And he's much more chill now than he was initially when he was here.
Right. So yeah, so it just keeps going, and so is life. I mean, to open you up to the paranormal. I mean, it's one of those things, and I forget who the quote comes from, but it's a famous quote saying, once you peer into the abyss peers back to you, appears back into you.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, that's how I've been my whole life. I've experienced things my whole life, and it seems being an investigator for so long as well, it just kind of ramps up sometimes depending on where I'm going and what I'm doing. But yeah, I have things happen all the time in my house, in my life,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Your mind is opened. You understand this is all real, and then once you kind of open up that door, it's just kind of it doesn't close. But like my daughter, she can remote view a house, but that whatever the beings are that are in that house, when she's looking at them, they look right back.
Yeah.
She opens up our home to attack because she's looking at their home,
Yeah.
We've had more than one time where things have come here from looking at them, remotely. So, she doesn't charge that much to clear a house actually, but, it is a risk.
Yeah.
For her and for our home.
Yeah. To put yourself out there like that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But it's worth it because she's really good at it, and it's done in 1 second. Like, your house is clean.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome to have those gifts come to light, and through all of this craziness, learn how to use them.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I would have never sought out a shaman if I didn't have this experience with this house.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have learned about Morgan and her, her ability if not confronted.
Right. Well, we just touched the tip of the iceberg with everything that happened, everything that's in the book, and people need to go out and pick it up. It is available on Amazon, Audible, and Kindle. And y'all go out and pick up a copy because it is an awesome book. And I love how you wrote it. It is straight and to the point. You talk like a normal person in it, And
yeah, thank you. I did have to it was sort of a exercise in memory and recall. It's like trying to remember how it all happened in a chronological order,
Yeah, and also I think these books are needed in the paranormal. I think we need more people telling their stories like this because it does help people who are going through this, at least, if anything, to give them some hope that there is help out there, just finding the right person to help, and that they're not alone and they're not crazy for all the things that they experience and go through, and that there are people that can help them.
Yeah, I since the book and since all this with the haunted house, now I have a blog where I still upload current events on that because it runs the gamut from fairies to aliens to whatever.
Yeah.
So that I still am experiencing now because it's just like I said, that door got opened and now it's just everything. So I do have a blog called The Same Wave, and I've got that up, and then I also now I'm hosting a channel on YouTube called Unordinary Made Ordinary, where we interview all sorts of people with varying experiences, a lot of near death and astral travelers, So I think it is important to make these things, a more ordinary topic,
Right. Yeah.
Because it's all real.
Yeah, and that's I've taken that stance. When I was younger, I was kind of a little more arrogant about, oh, this is what I know, and then no. Now that I've gotten older, it's like no, and I never discount anybody's story because I've seen crazy shit myself, and I don't want anybody to discount things that have happened to me. And why would I discount something that I've never experienced just because I haven't experienced it?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people who they have that idea, like they'll believe it when they see it. It
right.
has to literally happen to them. But honestly, I wouldn't want to go through what I've been through just to believe in ghosts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I also don't want to have a near-death experience.
Right.
But I want to listen to yours.
Yeah. If you've had one, I want you to educate me. Yeah.
Yes, please. I'll just listen to you, and I'm going to believe you.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me today. I really enjoyed the conversation, really enjoyed the book. And like I said, people need to go out, and I'll put all your links in the show notes so people can check out your blog and the YouTube channel as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll send all that to you in Messenger so you've got it.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Stay safe out there. We'll see you next time. Have a good day. Thank you for listening to the Unseen Paranormal Podcast. Join us next week for an all-new, amazing guest. And in the meantime, please go on Spotify or Apple and give us a rate and a review. And go over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would like to submit your story, you can email it to unseenparanormalpodcast@gmail.com. And you can remain anonymous if you like. Once again, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Stay safe out there.